Get on board the Bernier bus train. Come get on board the Bernier bus train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Oh, get on board the Bernier bus train.
Hello! I just realized that I forgot to thank Crystal Ball, Sagar Anjetti, and Tim Black for their wonderful clips that I featured this morning. So thank you, and on with the show. Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Buzz Show. The Bernie Blackout is real, and here to tell you all about it is Senator Nina Turner.
Snapshot of Nina Turner in action. Ladies and gentlemen, Nina Turner, turning it up.
Encourage 400,000 of our closest friends got a $15 an hour wage increase. Hello, somebody. Oh, yeah, this is just what a sister needs. I'm free. Free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty. Come on, somebody. Y'all know y'all can't keep black girl magic. Can't be kept down. Can't be contained. South Carolina. So what I am saying about our senator, South Carolina in a state that doesn't pay teachers the wage that they deserve. Come on, somebody. In a state where classrooms have too many students in one classroom. Hello, somebody. In a state that refused to expand Medicaid. Come on, somebody. In a state where HBCUs need some love. Come on, somebody. In a state where workers don't have a right to a union. Come on, somebody. In a state that pays the third highest premiums for health care. What am I saying? What are you saying, Sister Turner? What I am saying, that this moment in time calls for not a half measure, not somebody who's going to negotiate away the big ideas and big dreams before they even take the oath of office. It demands a champion, somebody who's been on the battlefield for the working class people of this nation, and his name is, and his name is, and his name is. Come on, somebody. We ain't going to play with this thing. So all of these people who are running, as the senator would say, they're very fine people. That's what the senator would say. But either you are on the side of the people or you are not. Either you believe that we should have Medicare for all as a moral right or you don't. Either you understand that in a nation that is not broke, that is wealthy, that can afford to give $1.6 trillion tax cut to the wealthiest people in this country without batting an eye. But when it comes time to put a down payment on Main Street, we got a problem. Something is wrong with that. And so we need a champion. One thing that you do know about Senator Sanders, he ain't gonna sell you out. He raises his money by grassroots donors like the people in this room, so he only has one special interest to answer to, and that is you, and you, and you, and you.
That's beautiful.
So let's talk about some of the organizing efforts beyond that, in particular in California, which is such a big state.
Yes.
Requires.
So here she is all turned up and telling us and making us cry because she gets it. And now she's going to tell us about how those same interests she's talking about, that Senator Sanders is going to tackle and take down. She's telling us about the dirty tricks that keep, I don't know how you can keep her down. I don't think that they're going to be able to ignore her forever, even if they ignore Bernie. But she's telling us the truth about this.
There's a lot of resources, a lot of planning to be able to compete. What's the status of the team on the ground there?
We certainly are staffing up in California, all over that state. We already have 5 offices opened. I mean, California is really 6 states within one state as you look at it. We've made millions of voter contact over these last few months. So California has always been on the top of our, in the top 5 of our list, even though, they were further down from Iowa and New Hampshire. We always knew that we needed to come in there and come in strong. So voter contact, volunteer to volunteer. Speaking of Nevada, just last night I was on a statewide call with our volunteers because we're training them up to be able to leverage them in the caucus process. So, hundreds of people were on that call as the team, one was, training them, but then also to have me on to motivate them and to tell them what's on the line. So staffing up between a paid staff and also volunteers all over both of those states.
And just, I think, lay out.
That's the other part they can't put away. They can't, even though they don't show it on news, they don't show it on the PBS NewsHour for sure. These huge rallies and all of the groundswell of support on the ground where it needs to be, this is happening all over the place, and it's stealthy when you don't see it on the news, but it's gonna burst out and it's gonna scare people. The oligarchs are trembling right now, and she's one of the main people in this whole world who makes them afraid.
The audience just how critical those states are, because I mean, going in Nevada and California, like Crystal said, Iowa and New Hampshire, South Carolina, both have their own unique population. This is really the first time that Latinos voters in the Democratic primary are going to get to have their say.
Absolutely, and our Latino voters are really feeling the burn.
Yeah,
they really do.
Yeah.
What is it, the highest number of fundraising, I think, that we've seen?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's really a beautiful thing. So the senator is really connecting with our Latino sisters and brothers all across this country, and Nevada will be able to show that strength. So will California. In 2016, we won 7 of the 15 Super Tuesday states. So we come in building. Again, not taking that for granted, but really building on a strong foundation. I do believe that the senator will win both Nevada and California. It's not just my belief. We're putting in the sweat equity to really make that a reality.
So one of the things that's always been an obstacle for Senator Sanders is the media coverage. And, we talk about it a lot here.
Yes,
and I think
thank you both for that.
Of course. I mean, I see it as part of a much larger pattern, right? Anyone with working class support, multiracial working class support, basically the media doesn't understand it, either ignores it or dismisses it, caricatures it. Latest example, PBS, of all people, did a lengthy piece, 13 minutes long plus, on 2020 in general and did not mention Senator Sanders.
Not one time.
One time.
I'm still waiting on the apology.
How does that happen?
It just... And thank you both. I mean, I want to thank Rise and thank Hill for just being fair arbiters and just laying out the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. The Bernie blackout is real. It's not a figment of our imagination. It almost seems like every morning these networks get a script that says blackout Bernie Sanders, even though he is polling very high. He's either number 1 or number 2. He's been durable. He has he's gone up in the polls as of late. His fundraising prowess, all of because he would say ours, but they continue to neglect to talk about his strength. Part of that is this class dynamic. And Crystal, you talk about it all the time, that these networks are wired only to care about the upper middle class and the ultra wealthy, and they leave out the narratives of the working poor in this country. It's caste and it's class. And because the senator is connecting with both of those, they can't tell the same lies they told in 2016. So since we can't just make that part up, we'll just not talk about him altogether. It is wrong. And I would say that about any candidate. I don't want to see any candidate blacked out. But it's certainly not a candidate that is polling in the top 1 or 2, and certainly is in the top 3 of the candidates that could get the Democratic nomination. It is wrong. And the system is rigged in that way.
And I do see it.
And the system is rigged. Time to burn America. Pamela Y. Price, African-American writer, on Medium. Absolutely, you should follow her like this. Click. Following. Pamela Price. The fierce urgency of now. Killer Mike, like Nina, Killer Mike turns it up. Same way. He makes me tremble when he speaks, as Nina does. Killer Mike caught my attention when he asked the question on The Real, do you like and respect Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? I saw that clip. It's very inspiring, even though he's not as shouting and preaching and inspiring. It's just so on the way his logic works. His analysis is that Bernie's agenda most closely matches the agenda of Reverend King. In the years right before he died, Reverend King talked about the need to transform America. In his book, The Black Presidency, Michael Eric Dyson reports a conversation in 1966 where Reverend King told his advisors that there must be a better distribution of wealth, and maybe America must move toward a democratic socialism. We know that King was murdered as he was organizing the Poor People's March on Washington and unifying people across race, religion, and class with the goal of eradicating poverty in America. Reverend King did not live to see the march. He knew his days were numbered. One of his most famous statements is, "The time is always right to do what's right." In America today, there is no time to wait, certainly not for anyone who cares about black people. In 1966, Reverend King declared that of all the inequalities that exist, the injustice in healthcare is the most shocking and inhuman. According to a 2016 Kaiser report, blacks have significantly higher death rates than whites for diabetes, heart disease, and cancer. HIV and AIDS diagnoses rates among blacks between ages 13 and 64 are more than 8 and 10 times higher than for whites. The death rate for HIV is 8 times higher for blacks compared to whites. The Kaiser study also found in 2014, 71% of whites were insured privately and only 21% had Medicaid or public insurance. By comparison, 51% of blacks had private insurance and 37% had Medicaid or public insurance. We know that the substantial gains made under the Affordable Care Act are being wiped out by Trump. One thing I'll say about this article is it soft pedals Barack Obama's failings. It kind of tiptoes around them. And that's because there is a solid block of people who just won't hear it. And I'm a little disappointed in that. But the overall point here is that if you take care of poor people, you will also take care of black people and brown people. And we aren't getting that. We're getting news. We're getting ads from pharmaceutical companies that try to obfuscate the truth about helping people, about helping poor people. And so the people who own the news right now absolutely don't want this young man here, Bernie Sanders, to get into your consciousness, because he's going to change things. He's not just going to pretend to change things or just talk about changing things. He's going to do whatever it takes. He's going to organize labor. He's going to, as Nina says, Nina is on the pulse of what needs to happen in this country. She talked about the PBS hour. A lot of that started here with this article. Nathan J. Robinson, Manufacturing Consent in Action, Current Affairs. And this article just lays it out there. The clip is also in this article, so if you want to watch the full clip of the PBS NewsHour, you can see where he's coming from. He talks about, they start with a shot of Joe Biden in front of his new No Malarkey bus. That's a joke. And then they go to Pete Buttigieg, and then Steve Bullock, and then we go back to Buttigieg, and then we go to Joe Biden, and then we go to New York Times report on the poor performance of Amy Klobuchar's campaign, and we see a piece of Cory Booker, and we keep going through all these candidates around hither and yon, and then thus ends the Democratic primary debate or update. Did you notice something missing? the host found no time to talk about Joe. He found time to talk about Joe Seastack and Steve Bullock, plus plenty of candidates struggling to get out of single-digit poll numbers, and yet not even a photo of Bernie Sanders. He's just erased. And that's what Nina was saying. He's just erased. And there are other people who are talking about this, but none more eloquently and powerfully than Nina Turner. So if you're trying to get on the train that's going into a new kind of world, we're making history right now. We're insisting that Bernie Sanders is the nominee for the Democratic Party. We're insisting, and we're not just reasonably laying it out there why he's the best candidate. We're saying you absolutely must nominate Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont, because he's the only one who's going to turn things around and make it work for poor people, for working class people, for brown and black people, for students, for women, for everyone who has been left behind by neoliberalism over the last 60 or 70 years. We won't have it any other way. We insist. And so that's why I want you to teach everyone you know the Bernie or bust train. And when they say you're being unreasonable or petulant, you're saying, no, we're not hearing that. What we're saying is that Bernie is the only one who's serious about this. Bernie is the only one who can win if you white, affluent, educated people want to keep insisting that we have a corporate candidate, you're going to lose. We can guarantee, in South Carolina, easily, we can guarantee that that Elizabeth Warren or Pete Buttigieg will not be the nominee. If you fool us into voting for Joe Biden, then the rest of us, especially the Bernie or Trump voters, will say, nope, not me. I'm not a Bernie or Trump voter. But the Bernie or Trump voters will insist that you're not going to get Elizabeth or Joe or Pete. You're going to get Trump. They can insist. There are enough of them that they can insist you're going to get Donald Trump again. And that's really the end game for the plutocrats. I think as they see Bernie rising right now, I think they realize the only possible way to stop him is to deny him the nomination. And that's where the leverage comes in. That's where you sing the Bernie or bust train song to everybody you know until they finally say, I can't take this anymore. And if they're serious about defeating Trump, and many, many Democrats, over 70% by some estimations, are serious about defeating Donald Trump, if they really want to do it, there's only one way. And that's something I feel that Nina Turner has been blacking out the Bernie or bust movement. But I know that I just feel it in my bones. She's behind it, but she can't talk about it. And Bernie can't talk about it. And people would say, well, what does Bernie want? Bernie said, don't listen to me. He said, if you want my voters, Hillary Clinton, you're going to have to make the case to them yourself. And I think Nina is very close to saying, hey, get on the Bernie or bust train. Get on the Bernie or bust train. Let's get serious about this. Let's tell the oligarchs enough is enough. And then with that kind of leverage, I think, who knows what else is going to happen then. I think they're going to come out of the woodwork then. All of the, like cockroaches, all the plutocrats are going to come out and they're going to start trying to figure out how to keep us under their thumbs. And it's not going to work. The organizer-in-chief is going to rile us up. We're going to take to the streets with our signs, and we're going to insist, just like they have in Puerto Rico or in Brazil or in Ecuador or in France. We're going to say enough is enough. The collective will of the people will be heard. It's time. The time is now. Hope to see you tomorrow. Keep on burning.
Get on board the Bernie or bust train. Come get on board the Bernie or bust train. Once you hear that clickety-clack, there ain't no time for turning back. Go get on board